Hello, everyone, and welcome to my episode 6 recap slash review of Naked and Afraid Castaways, a spin off of Naked and Afraid, in which 9 survivalists are dropped on a tropical island and are tasked with surviving 21 days without any survival tools and must scavenge what they can from the island. Once they make it to 21 days, if they make it to 21 days, they are to go to the north point of the island, start a signal fire, and use a raft they build themselves to paddle to an extraction boat. Now, this episode begins with Kara and Naim as Kara is struggling during the hike to a more open area, and Naim is being very supportive of her, fanning her, making sure she drinks water, and being emotionally supportive as well. And he reiterates that he feels bad that he left his partner behind on his original 21-day challenge, which coincidentally is Rachel, who is at a camp on the west part of the island, which it seems to be where Kara and Naim are heading. So it'll be interesting to see that reunion. And we see it. Kara and Naim eventually make it to Rachel and Justin's camp, and Naim and Rachel are reunited, and Rachel and Naim are very happy to see one another again, and Rachel points out that Naim made it farther than his previous challenge, and he's going, "Oh, let's not worry about that. Let's focus on the here and now and all that jazz." And so it's a very nice reunion between the two, and they immediately begin looking for food. Well, not immediately. They take a little bit of time, but they eventually look for food, and they find some crabs and snails, but unfortunately it's not a lot of protein. So the idea of moving camps is discussed, and Naim comes up with the idea to build a raft so they can bring Rachel with them so she doesn't have to trek through the jungle, because Rachel has basically been on a swollen leg for 7 days and has not been complaining at all about it. She just mentions that, it's swelling, it's fine. And she's worried that she's not able to move around as much or help as much, which is very upsetting for her because she wants to pull her weight and doesn't want to be a burden on her group. And so she spends some time untangling some ropes that they found on the beach to help build the raft, and Naim takes charge and does a really great job making this raft. And Naim reiterates how much he wants to help Rachel because he feels bad about leaving her behind. But unfortunately, at the end of the episode, day 14, Rachel decides to tap from the challenge because just the pain that she has been going through with her leg is just too much for her, and she can't continue forward and doesn't want to be a burden on her partners. And it's very commendable that she lasted as long as she did, because we find out that she had a fractured tibia and a torn meniscus for an entire week. And my personal opinion is that she should have been med tapped, because if your leg is swelling for so long and you're unable to walk on it, you should not have to push yourself. You should just have the medics come in to, take you out of the challenge. But the producers or whomever had a show to make, and they probably thought, hey, this is more drama and she's not in any imminent danger, so we'll just let her tap out on her own accord. And it's just very sad to see. I think that they should have tapped her from the challenge because she was in a lot of pain and there was really nothing she could do about it. But maybe if she was partnered with Jeff on Last One Standing, they would have pulled her almost immediately. But, sorry, a little fun shade there. But, I am a little bit annoyed that they didn't pull her out of the challenge sooner. So now she has to go home with the thought that, oh, I left, I quit from this, even though there wasn't anything she could have done about it and it was an accident. And so she seems to be making a good recovery from that. I hope she's feeling better. And now we go on to Team South, which is Patrick, Heather, and Andrew. And the tide is continuing to rise, and Heather and Andrew are very worried about it, but Patrick is not very worried. And if you haven't already, please listen to the most recent Jake and Afraid episode, or at least for episode 6, because Patrick is there, and he talks about how he wasn't really worried because there was a lot of resources and they can move at the last second, and he wasn't too worried about anything that was happening. So he was very chill about it. And he was just like, let's see if I can catch the saltwater croc for funsies, because they seem to have enough resources at their current camp and they don't know what was in the unknown. And so let's just leave it to the last minute. But by the halfway point of the episode or so, Heather and Andrew convince him to move because the tide is coming up and because their water has become brackish, which means that the salt water has contaminated their fresh water, and so they have to move camp because they have almost nothing to drink. But luckily, Patrick is able to find some coconuts, and so they're able to collect some coconuts, build up their strength, and then move on day 14 into the unknown as they hike a little bit more north. And speaking of north, we have Bulent, whose storyline for the episode is the pig keeps messing up his trap, and so he keeps changing variables here and there to fine tune it. And by day so and so, he is able to finally catch the pig. That is right, Bulent catches the pig, and he's able to process it very nicely with a very sharp rock, so kudos to him. And also, this moment was shared in the trailer, so I wasn't really surprised. And so that was cool to see him catch the pig by himself, and he is being very smart and drying it out as soon as possible, because if he doesn't, then flies usually lay their eggs on moist surfaces, and he wants to make sure it's pretty dried out so that flies don't lay their eggs on it. And he is going to take as much as he can on a trek to see if he can meet up with the other group, and probably in the next episode he's gonna be hiking down the stream and meet up with Naim, Kara, and Justin, but we haven't seen that, so that's just speculation at this point. And so, yeah, it was a good episode in my opinion. We have Rachel. Well, it's not a good episode because Rachel is leaving, but it's a good episode because it's just nice to see the dynamic between Naim and Rachel and Kara and Justin, and that group really meshed well together. We see Patrick kind of agreeing with the other two and being like, okay, it's a democracy, let's do it, without any pushback or whatnot. And Bulent catches the pig. And it's sad that Rachel had to leave. Again, I think she should have been med-tapped, but that's just me. And we shall see what happens next week, because in the information about next week's episode, it seems someone comes down with a fever, so we shall see what happens with that. Oh, and also on the Jake and Afraid episode featuring Patrick that they did for this episode, Patrick talked about how he lied during the episode while Heather, Patrick, and Andrew are hiking north on the island. Patrick is like, oh no, something touched my stick. And so that kind of leads to a cliffhanger for a commercial break. And then we come back and everything's fine. And then basically Patrick just did that for funsies, just to mess with the other two, because he knows the area really, really well. And so he was just like, oh, I just kind of messed with them. So that's great. And so, yeah, thank you for listening to the episode. I'll give what my thoughts are for, or spoilery thoughts for what may happen in the next 2 episodes in a second, but I want to thank everyone for watching and listening. Please like, comment nice things, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I appreciate you. And now on to spoilers. Basically, I think a merge is coming soon. Maybe Bulent is going to meet up with Kara and Naim and Justin, and then they're gonna move, because there's still supposed to be the final 6 merge where all the groups come together, because we're supposed to be seeing that Naim and Patrick fight. And then I think that Justin taps in the next episode, because during the commercials and trailers we see him not looking so good, so I think he leaves. And we shall see what kind of craziness happens next. Thanks again for joining, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Okay, now. Bye-bye.